What's up, good people? The Intelligent Hoodlums back again, doing the thing that we do, and Webs, we just had a opportunity to present at ISTE virtually. What were your thoughts on that?
It was so fun. People were so delightful. I wish I could have seen more faces, but there were some great people in the chat and a couple of folks that were on camera. So it was good. It was really good.
So that kind of got us thinking. Hey, there was what's it that not at ISTE, isn't that the hashtag, the movement, like not at ISTE. So hey, like let's do the same thing or a thing in the same vein, a presentation in the same vein, like for those out there in the public who did not go to ISTE, and we did not go to ISTE. We just presented there, which is also interesting conundrum. So tonight, what we're going to talk about for the next hour or so is really why prompting isn't your chief concern when you bring whatever work, collaborative, co-created work or collaborative work that you're going to be doing to your LLM in question. We had a different presentation that we actually applied to ISTE for, and we abandoned that concept, which most people were cool with. There was just one person that kind of had some beef, and it is what it is. Um, and that was kind of the initial point. Webs was this like prompting framework, and we're gonna walk people through the prompt. Like, why did we abandon that particular thing from a technologist point of view?
Yeah, I think right now is a crazy time. Like, I think it's a cool time to be alive because you don't get a lot of opportunities to see a technology evolve so quickly. But what we see with LLMs is our understanding of how they work and how to work best with them is evolving so quickly that what we wrote 6 months ago was largely based on a prompting framework. And what we found in those 6 months is that that's not actually the most effective way to work with a large language model. We're talking Gemini, ChatGPT, Claude. So we decided to evolve the presentation. It's still it's still grounded in what we had promised to our audience, which is this is a beginner's intro level thing. We're giving you a how to interact with your LLM for a beginner, hopefully in an approachable way. But we wanted to ground it more on what we've learned in those last 6 months. Because had we just stuck with what we had, I don't think it would have been as relevant. And I think sometimes you just have to make that call and stay true to what you've learned and what's going to be best for your audience.
100%, 100%. And we're trying to set up teachers in particular for the long game. Like, how do you make sure that you have a structure that's more adaptable than simply a framework? And to be honest, there are thousands of frameworks out there. We don't need another framework. There's plenty of frameworks that are out there for people to choose. And what I have found, at least in my just reading and interacting with the LLMs, is if you have the structures set up properly, you can just use natural language to converse with whatever tool you're dealing with. If it's grounded properly in the thing that you need it to be able to deal with. Um, and I think that's the trick. It's that grounding, that structuring, the memory, so that you don't have to constantly reprompt and reprompt and reprompt and waste tokens and waste time. All right, so that's what we're going to get down with this evening. If you're following us, if you're watching this, awesome. This is again our another take on what we did at ISTE. And hopefully this is going to make a lot of things very simple and plain for you as you start to plan for your next school year, as you start to plan for utilizing these tools with your young people. All right, all right, all right, all right. So let's get crack-a-lacking. We're going to use that same the same keynote that we used for our presentation. So we'll kind of make it authentic. So really what we're asked, the question we want to answer by the time that we're finished in this hour is, what if magic, and we're going to underline that word mentally, magic was the key to using AI in your learning environment? And we start to talk about magic webs. What kind of things come to mind when we talk about the word magic?
Gosh, what comes to mind when we say the word magic? Mystery. Um, that thing where you saw a lady in half. Card tricks. That meme with Shia LaBeouf. I
Oh
think
yeah,
it's Shia
yeah,
LaBeouf.
yeah,
No,
yeah,
no,
yeah.
it's Paul Rudd. Or is it Shia LaBeouf?
It's
I
Shia
don't
LaBeouf.
remember.
It's Shia LaBeouf.
Okay.
Well, I mean, I always
That.
think I go back to my childhood, as many of us do, when you first encounter things. I think David Copperfield on TV, right?
Oh, okay.
That's the first thing that comes to mind. It's these, you sit with the popcorn and you're watching it. He's going to make something disappear, or he's going to do, and you're like, oh my goodness, this is amazing. Oh my gosh, this guy has supernatural abilities. And then you grow up and you realize this is an illusion. This is not an actual thing. They don't actually have these powers. They just use, they distract you with their hands or with the beautiful woman on the right side of the screen while they're doing something else behind it. And it's a lot of engineering feats and understanding chemistry. It's math, it's science. It's not actually magic, it's very tangible. That's at least what I started to think about. And we believe that AI is the same kind of thing, right? So Kurt Vonnegut has this quote that hopefully you will memorize and you will use to focus your efforts when you're using, whether you're using AI or not. Science is magic that works. And so if you remember, in that same vein, when we were younger, there was a television program, a series on Fox, in which the masked magician went and showed you how all the tricks worked, right? And they were like, hey, they show you the trick first, and they would put their mask on and they would show you this is actually what this person is doing. And that's what we were going to try to do without the mask on. Neither one of us is wearing masks, to my knowledge. Hey, there's some science, there's some engineering, there's some actual technology that works. Webbs actually was wearing a mask. But
I'm really Tom Cruise.
I mean, hey, Mission Impossible 8. But yeah, Kurt Vonnegut kind of nails the motivation that we have tonight, that this is just science. And if we understand the science, we understand how things are structured, we utilize it to our best of abilities in whatever learning environment we have to be in. And so, as you know, there are 3 parts to a magic trick. There's a pledge, there's a turn, and there's prestige. If you've seen the movie The Prestige, it's on Hulu for free. Not for free. If you have a Hulu subscription, it is on Hulu. But Christopher Nolan is probably my favorite, director in terms of just pushing buttons and playing with time and things like that. And so our pledge is what we're going to start off with initially. And, didn't want to do that. Let's go actually do the actual first part of our little trick here, Webbs. And we're going to take a normal prompt, and then we're going to make it do some things later on as we work. And so this is Google Gemini, and we're using Google Gemini because our local school district uses this as as the part of the Google suite. Most schools are Google apps for education, or whatever they call themselves these days, schools. And so they will have access to this particular tool. So let's write a basic prompt, Webbs, using, oops, I don't want to do that, using the components. And this is all happening live. This is nothing that no sleight of hand here. These are components, the components of an effective lesson. Create a 3rd grade lesson plan. So that's just generic vanilla situation, right? There's nothing particularly.
It's not a super long prompt. It's not like paragraphs on paragraphs. It's a single sentence.
All right, great. So that happened rather quickly. Making sense of fractions, 3rd grade, whatever. And Webbs, if you could, the thing that makes you such a very intriguing person to do these kind of things with is you've taught, and you're also on the development side. So can you kind of dissect, looking at the output of this prompt, what kind of things are there, and then what isn't there?
Yeah. So, I mean, we have from the teaching side, right? The components of an effective lesson. You said you wanted third grade. It did third grade. It chose math. It gave an average duration, but it has anticipatory set activity. The gradual release model. I do. We do. You do. I'm assuming anyway. Independent practice. It has differentiation, and there's closure. It has even an exit ticket down at the bottom, right? So it has the components of an effective lesson, just like you asked. The thing about LLMs are the LLM stands for large language model. And I like to call it three autocompletes in a trench coat because all it's really doing is taking a guess at what the next most common, we say token, but you could substitute word, paragraph, sentence, whatever. What's the next most common thing that likely is going to show up in language, right? Large language model. That's all it's doing is it's auto completing on a very grand scale. and and so I wouldn't be surprised if you were to like look through everything that's on the internet. One of the most common things that comes up are the objectives about fractions. Fractions is a hard concept to teach. I'm not surprised that lots of people have to go looking or produce lesson plans about fractions. Students will be able to identify, write, and model fractions representing parts of a whole, which is also one of the like introductory standards of fractions. It's using Common Core standards, which is pretty universal across the United States, at least. It cites the Hershey Milk Chocolate Bar Fractions book, which I think is an actual book. One of the things you have to be careful of is sometimes it will just hallucinate things. Like it may make up the title of a book based on what the most common authors' names are and what common names for books about fractions are. So you have to be careful of those things as well. But for the most part, it's going to coalesce to the average. So this is probably your average third grade lesson plan.
Wonderful. And so this is like, and to kind of guess and your particular sentiments. LLMs are probability machines, right? To your point of, oh, they're just making the next most educated guess. Hey, given 1,000 people, a 990 of those people would have done X, Y, and Z, or this based on my training data, right? They're not certainty machines, which is the reason why, as the human in the loop, as this person who's utilizing these tools, there is a degree of knowledge you have to bring to the table in order to ensure the accuracy of lots of the findings. For example, I have no idea if that is actually what that standard says. No idea. It just produced a standard. If I didn't know what a standard was, if I did not know what the Common Core was and was able to go and backtrack and making sure that there was accuracy and precision utilized as the lesson plan was developed, I might put that into my lesson planning template or whatever I'm supposed to do in order to give to my administrator and say, yo, that's the deal. The other thing is, because it's probability, it's not taking into account nuance. So I might not be in a state that uses the Common Core anymore. I might be in Nevada, for example, where the Nevada academic standards are inspired by the Common Core, but they're not. We don't utilize the term Common Core. So could I utilize this in my classroom as is? Absolutely not. There's other work I would have to do in order to do that. All right. Also, again, checking on the accuracy of the name of that book. Does that book exist? Do I have access to that book? I may not have access to the book. You just gave me a lesson plan with a piece of material that I do not have access for, that I might have to purchase. Or is this book still in libraries? If it's still something that's actually being published at this particular point, how old is this book? I've never heard of the book before in my life, perhaps, or whatever, right? All right. It's making lots of assumptions in terms of my ability to do all of these things because it does not have a context for my individualized learning environment. So that is the first kind of very interesting thing to bring to the environment. If I just prompt right off the bat and say, hey, this is the thing that I want, it is going to go with the highest probability of what could solve my particular problem, not solving my particular problem. So super interesting, but it did it very quickly. It got me when I wanted, and I can leave. If I just was looking for a perfunctory lesson plan, I got it in 15 seconds or less. Also, I didn't tell it what content area I wanted the lesson plan from. It just assumed it was a math because, again, going back to what you said, Webbs, yo, it was probably trained on in third grade. Lots of third grade teachers, lots of people complain about mathematics, fractions in mathematics. I mean, I would assume that if I said fifth grade, it would be kind of a similar sentiment because as a veteran fifth grade teacher, fractions is a monster, and decimals are a monster to teach in fifth grade. All right. Questions, comments, concerns, anything else to add, Webbs?
No, we do have a few viewers, so if you have comments, don't hesitate to put them in the chat.
Absolutely, absolutely. Or enjoy the ride. It's not a problem.
Yeah, that's also fine.
All right. So if we start to think about that, that's going to lead us directly in the concept of the turn. And then we're going to spend a lot of time here, the bulk of our time, before we get to like the magic trick at the very end. Because I think the turn is the part, Webbs, that really is going to encourage people to not lose hope in humanity. One of the things that I've kind of found as we talk about AI is, oh my goodness, it's going to take people's jobs. And there's no way that we're going to have the arts and creativity is going down the drain and none of this is happening. I think that if we start to look at how we structure our interactions with AI, we can be very fruitful despite the fact that AI is going to be something that's not going to leave us anytime soon. And Jim Butcher, for those who are sci-fi and fantasy fans, there was a series called The Dresden Files, early 2000, in which Jim Butcher was the author. He had a one-season television program or television series on sci-fi, and Harry Dresden was a kind of a very interesting, intriguing character who was a wizard who used a hockey stick as his wand, and he would solve people's problems. It was it's very interesting set of books if you're someone that enjoys sci-fi and fantasy. But this quote, magic comes from what is inside you. It is a part of you. You can't weave together a spell you don't believe in. He uses the word you there 1, 2, 3, 4 times. The magic is you. And as human beings, we need to understand the thing that differentiates your content, the thing that makes the AI do the thing that you want it to do, the thing that's still going to make it unique is you. And for teachers especially, this is the reason to embrace not selling your entire workflow to AI, but believing in yourself enough to co-create with AI. What do you have to say about that, Webbs?
Yeah, I think we're really moving into an age where things that are personal, that do center the human, are becoming more and more important. And so that's why it's important that you understand your own perspective and where you come from and who you are and what makes you who you are, so that you can use a tool effectively and instead of just like mushing into the homogenized result that it will give you by default.
Absolutely.
And I think too, this is something that isn't unique to education. We see this in companies. We see this in development. You have to understand how to give it the proper context in order to get the outcome you're looking for to solve the problem that exists within your context.
Absolutely. And so it requires you to be knowledgeable. I think what people are being sold is AI will solve your problem. It will not solve your problem if you're not knowledgeable. If you don't do the blue collar work necessary to get the super cool, super fast content and context specific answer, if you don't do the research, you don't do the reflection necessary, you're going to get some generic vanilla content that nobody wants in the first place, that doesn't actually solve your particular problem. You have lots of creators right now who are filling books full of AI slop, art full of AI slop, your social media pages full of AI slop. And I still stop and watch people, real humans, do work with Photoshop and Illustrator and InDesign, because those tools still have little pieces of AI that help you upscale an image or add up something that's missing. or save you some time in a particular process, but they don't replace you as the human creator. And I think that is the sweet spot. Anything to add, Webbs?
My roommate had tried the new like fill in tool I think iOS has
Mm-hmm.
on images
Yeah.
on a picture of me, and it like put a door in front of my front door, and then like half cloned Bluey in the background and changed my whole ceiling. And it was crazy, like the way that it filled things in. It was giving like eight fingers on a hand from like 2 years ago. It was like when if you just glanced at it, it looked like a perfectly normal image. But when you looked closer, you're like, oh yeah, that's weird and that's weird. And where is that light coming from? So you have to have that eye. You have to have that discernment.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so we're going to challenge you at home or whoever you're watching to kind of walk through a particular process, and we're going to we're going to talk through it as you walk through it. And we think that as educators in particular, lots of educators who are anti-AI, it won't come in my classroom, et cetera, et cetera. And I would posit that one of the reasons why they're anti-AI is because they don't understand how to structure it to still value the human component of in their classroom in order to get the content that they would like, and to make sure that students actually know the thing that they're supposed to know before they do whatever AI process. Go ahead, Webbs.
Oh, I would say too that there are a lot of teachers who label themselves as anti-AI who still use it in exactly this manner. And that's a very valid way of using it. Like what we're about to show you, like you use that strategy already and it's a sound one. Maybe there's something that more that we can offer you, hopefully, but like I don't think I think it's just another tool. That's really all it is.
Absolutely. And so we're gonna call this the magic of the mundane, and this is the hoodlums like branded concept here. Don't go out and steal and start saying stuff. The magic of the mundane. And when we talk about mundane, we're not talking about boredom. We're talking about the blue collar work that's necessary to do before you start bringing things to the LLM and expecting magic to happen right off the cuff. And so there is the necessity to have folder structures, have the ability to reflect on what you already know about a thing, the ability to go and sketch things out before you start to think about AI tool X solve my particular problem. And we have been doing this since the dawn of time. How many people have done KWL charts with your learners? You've done it. I
love a good KWL.
Bada bing. I want to surface what you actually know before we start going down this pathway of perhaps going down rabbit holes, perhaps reinforcing things that I've already covered. Like, what do you already bring to the table that validates this particular journey that we happen to go on? And we call that the magic of the mundane, that blue collar work that you need to do as a human that no one can do and replace for you, that before you go to your LLM, you're going to be able to do what you need to do. And so we have a 3 perspective kind of strategy here. And this is nothing, we didn't make this up. We're just going to put some words to it that you already know. And first is that human element and really respecting the humanity of everyone who happens to be in your learning environment. And so what I'm going to ask you to do is I want you to think about something you had to do in order to be a teacher in any vein. And that's who you are. Oftentimes we get in this trap of the why. Like, why are you in the classroom? What kind of things? What's your why?
What's your why?
That's cool, man. But there's the who you are, I think, it gets to a deeper thing, Webbs. When someone asks you what's your why, like what does that surface for you? The why question, what does it surface for you?
I mean, I think anymore it's kind of hackneyed, right? So what's your why is it makes me cringe. It is, as the kids say, cringe. And I think every teacher just about now gets that way because what's your why has become such a cliche. And quite often most teachers will say, oh, the kids.
Yeah.
But like, to your point, I think recognizing who you are right now is more powerful because it forces you to think back on what got you to where you are now. Because sometimes I don't think the why is a practical enough question. So I left teaching a little over a decade ago, and it wasn't because I no longer had a why. It's just there were other circumstances, right? And I think also identity can be a powerful thing, and who you are speaks to identity. Like, so I'm uh finishing up my PhD, working on my final research study, my dissertation in learning sciences. And one of the things we learned really early on, because learning science is basically an educational psychology degree, is the power of identity and the power of people's beliefs. And so talking about who you are elicits a much more powerful, reflective thing than talking about what's your why. I think what's your why was trying to get at that, but like I said, it just kind of became so cliche that it's not as effective of a question. Time expires all ideas. So at some point, probably asking who are you as a teacher will become some hackneyed idea that is overplayed, and every teacher has done it in a professional development session and never wants to hear that question again.
But who you
Why
are?
why do you think it's a more powerful question?
Because who you are is constantly evolving, right? Who you are right now is not who you were yesterday. It's not who you're going to be in 10 years. Your why, the thing that I had a problem with what your why at the beginning was, it decenters you as a participant, right? It says there's a reason, your reason why you're doing this. If you didn't say the kids, it was this like, oh my goodness, like there's another reason why you're doing this. Like the children, it's kind of like this indictment on you as a human, rather than saying, when I say who I am, the why can be wrapped up in that. I do enjoy working with young people. That's a part of who I am. But it also forces you to go far more in depth in terms of what skills I bring to the table, what experiences I had that have molded me or not molded me. It forces you to do a deeper dive than my why is I want 3 months off in the summer. Like, oh, okay, cool. And then you can go to the next situation.
I think also, to your point, why implies extrinsic motivation.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That there's not a, it also creates this like line of demarcation, right? Who you are implies, I'm not saying who you are in a classroom, I'm saying who you are as a human. Like, you are a holistic being, that the talents and skills you have outside of the classroom should always, that's part of who you are. You shouldn't like go up in your classroom and suddenly you leave the fact that you are a concert pianist outside of the doors to your classroom. How is it being a concert pianist, the discipline that takes, the talent that plays, the ear that takes, how is that helping you do the job that you're being compensated to do? And I think far too often we have teachers who have, created these little mini personas that go into, I only do these things in the classroom.
Severance.
You know what I'm saying?
It's severance.
Yeah, straight up and down. Like, the innie and the outie are taking place, and you're like, okay, dude, you have some talents that you're not bringing to bear in this particular environment. Why aren't you doing these particular things? And so that to me is important, to discern who you are and really reflect on that thing. And when we did this with the crew at Legacy, like the next day, that reaction, asking people to like surface some of the things they contemplate, that was really an interesting conversation. Can you kind of go through kind of what people kind of surfaced?
Yeah, I was actually really I was impressed by to your point, like the reactions people had, and the look on their faces when they started thinking about it, because apparently, like, for some folks, they had been thinking about it since the day before. They just had kind of been rolling that question around in their head of like, yeah, who am I? And I remember one participant said, yeah, I got to thinking about, well, I do this because of this person, and I met that person through this person, and I got that experience through this, like, going all the way back to like college and high school and all the people that have influenced them. And it's interesting because it's also reflective of how deep our human connections go, right? It's not just for the kids, it's also every human who has influenced me along the way has made a mark on my life that has turned me into who I am now.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
every book I've read, it's every movie I've seen, it's every song I've listened to, it's every experience I've had. And it was really cool just seeing that people wanted to engage with that question more deeply outside of the few hours that we spent with them.
Yeah, I mean, it was fascinating that who are you balloon into this like greater like let me go down memory lane. That was like very, very, and I have not seen that in all the PDs I've attended with What's Your Why. It's usually a 3 second What's Your Why, kids, helping the future, da, 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 and it's like you can just espouse what the actual answers to that question are. So we think that before you entertain utilizing AI, there has to be some kind of human reflection that happens, whether that's a KWL chart and kind of whatever, some kind of question that forces you to go down that particular lane, that concept of memory, that forces you to reconcile with who you are as a human before you go and take the reins of I'm going to talk to Claude or Gemini or ChatGPT or whatever. Then it's important to deal with analog processes. Oops. And we say analog technology webs. What do we mean by analog technology processes?
Yeah, it just means we're not quite going to the computer, or we're not typing. We're ideally writing something. Maybe that writing something is on paper. Maybe that writing something is on an iPad or whatever you have available to you. But you're engaging in the slowing down and like we know from research, right, that writing is a really powerful thing. It makes connections in the brain that aren't the same as typing. And just being able to slow down, maybe it's drawing a picture, maybe it's putting together a poster, or working with manipulatives. It's some sort of analog something that helps you get your original ideas kind of down. Because that can become a powerful tool later. And I don't want to spoiler, so I'm going to wait until we get to the next step to ask you a question.
So a watch is technology, right? Wind it up, works, it does what it needs to do. A clock is technology. A pencil's technology.
Glasses are technology.
Glasses are technology. When we start to think about, we start putting things in categories. Like, I know no technology in my classroom. There is technology in your classroom. There's some kind of implement. Some
thermostat
kind of
out.
So that's also like the anti-tech movement. We're not going to. We're not anti-tech. Everybody is I'm sitting on a chair that is technology that allows me to sit without having to hurt my back or to stand up for long periods of time, right? We're utilizing a streaming product right now in order to get messages up. We want technology used. What we want to do, though, is make sure the technology is used in such a way that it's positive, it helps young people understand. It doesn't replace a young people's understanding. It amplifies that ability to do so, right? So awesome. What are ways that we can use analog technology to help young people? I'm a huge proponent of thinking maps. And when I first got to Las Vegas 2 decades ago, and I was taught by one of the OGs at the school, and she was like, look, you should be dangerous with a blank sheet of paper. You shouldn't have to do any other, like, we're going to do dittos every day. Like, look, bro, if you can't take a blank sheet of paper and make it bend to your will, then as a teacher, you may want to think about some different things. And so if you're not familiar with thinking maps, they were the hottest thing on the block in the early, like mid 2000s, but then they kind of just died out. But if you go to thinkingmaps.com right now, they're still there. They try to digitize them, which I think is a shame, but you can use a pencil and a sheet of paper in order to do this. And
also not a sponsor.
Not a sponsor at all. We would love them to sponsor this. I mean, if you got some cash, we will go and sing your praises. But this is an example of what we're talking about when we start talking about analog technology. This is just a blank sheet of paper, and I took a pen and did this. In the center of the screen is the focus, the subject of what we're going to be dealing with. I said the teacher I am. So I really want to do this deep dive. And around it is just a brain dump of all the things that make me the teacher that I believe I am. Ryan Coogler, collab creations with people, Universal Design for Learning, Green Lantern. I love them because he can construct things out of his mind. Christopher Nolan, Portrait of Nevada Learner, Little Prince, Jacob Lawrence, Thinking Maps, Sushi, Mino's Paradise, all these things. Wonderful. You can do this for any topic in your classroom. And I would argue that if you're not doing some kind of brain dump where kids are physically writing down the things they know or they question or they wonder about before you go into Unit X, you are not helping a young people do the reflective process that is necessary for proper metacognition to happen. Webbs, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, for sure. Like there's this concept of diverge, converge. And a lot of times where we get stuck is, especially as adults, is that we try to filter our ideas at the same time that we're generating them. So you can try this yourself if you want to like follow along, pause, like it's Dora the Explorer and you like want to do your little thing or like doing a go, what is it called? Like a follow along type thing. You can pause this if you're watching it on replay and do this along with us, because if you free your mind from the constraint of having to filter as you're generating, like, oh, is this idea good enough? Should I write this down? Just stream of consciousness, write down everything that comes to mind. You can worry about filtering it later. It's amazing the ideas that will emerge when you give yourself that freedom to just stream of consciousness write things down. I remember when I was in elementary school, one of the first tasks they taught us when it came to writing was doing stream of consciousness writing, where you have a blank sheet of paper and you just write all the thoughts that come across your head. And from there, you might find some idea that then turns into a narrative that you're writing or a topic you want to research or whatever. But really making sure to separate the converging, the like filtering of ideas from the producing of ideas, that divergent thinking.
Yeah, and like, hey, there are no wrong answers when you're brainstorming here. Like, it might be answers that don't fit what you're currently attempting to produce, but the number of times in all the notebooks that I have that I would just write some stuff down that seemed important, but I don't use it. But then, like 3 weeks later, I'm like, oh my god, that was a baller idea there, fam. Let's take that and put it in this particular thing, because suddenly, serendipitously, that was the answer that I just had prematurely. And teaching kids not to cross things out. This is why writing things are so important. That's why brainstorming is such an important process. Yo, don't second guess yourself before you had the time to be the first guess. Write everything down. Stream of consciousness. Miss Sandy Jackson in fourth grade used to do the same thing with us. We take the piece of construction paper and we'll write everything down. Circle the cool ideas that you think are cool for right now. Leave all the other ideas on the page. Take that, put it in your folder. All right. Having those kind of concepts, I think, are super important. But lots of times we teach kids to filter out things rather than keeping the smorgasbord of ideas on the plate that allow us, again, not just to solve the immediate problem, but that problem we may have 6 months from now. All right, super dope. So that's the deal there. And to the immediate context, that brainstorming layer is important, but the most important layer to this entire thing that lots of teachers, when I was working with them with teaching maths, would skip is the frame of reference. So what you'll notice is there is a box that I drew around this entire concept. That frame of reference is, okay, cool. You got all these ideas in here. How do you know that stuff? And that was the place that, beyond the conversation with your partner about, okay, here's all the ideas I have. These are things. This is like, cool. I know these things because I've watched this particular creator on YouTube. I had this particular experience. I went to this particular school. I learned from this particular person. You will start to see the 6 degrees of separation when you start talking to people about, you watch that creator, I watched them too. Or you've been to that place, I've been to that place too. That's cool. And you get the context for why you feel this way about whatever content that you have. And it's mirroring how you want to work with the LLM. This is what I know about myself, and this is why I know it. I'm just not pulling this thing out of the ether. There's actually concrete, tethered experiences that let me know this thing. It's my bibliography, it's my appendices, it's the thing that says this can be proven. Webbs.
Yes, I agree with all of that.
So if you want kids to get good at AI, get them good at the blue collar work first, so then I'm not cheating myself. Because as you're seeing now, lots of these companies said, I can fire the humans and the AI is going to do their jobs. And what are these companies happy to do right now? Hire those people back, because that knowledge inside of that human is important as a filter for, the probability machine is saying X, but my knowledge, my experience is saying that probability machine is off because it wasn't grounded in the proper context in order to make that decision in a way that's going to benefit the company and make whatever product we're selling or service we're selling the best product or service that it can be. Anything to add on that, Webbs?
Nope.
All right, super dope. So you got this situation in which you've done this reflection, you've done this analog process, and whether that's again stream of consciousness writing, some KWL chart, some other little fancy graphic that you have in your classroom, the kids need to get that written down, and they also need to converse with another human about it. Hey, I'm going to share this information with you. This is what I'm thinking, how reasonable these things are, circling and highlighting. This is a really cool idea for the problem I'm trying to solve right now, or this isn't. Here's some other places that I might find information that might reinforce or might rebut the thing that I'm saying. And after this part, it's the part that we totally eliminate in most classrooms in America. It's the human, it's the analog webs, and then it's the digital part. And it saddens me every time I walk in the classroom. For those who are not familiar with this, for the last 6 months or so, I was a guest teacher in about 40 classrooms in Las Vegas, 40 schools. And at no point were young people thinking about things, using analog processes, and then digitizing their notes so they could create networks of notes. Webs.
But why is it important to digitize things? Why is that? They wrote it on a paper. Like, what's the big deal?
I am an avid journaler. I think Webbs, you do the same thing. I think most humans write things down in journals.
That's mine.
And I keep a journal, but I'm sitting at my computer. My journal is sitting here. I got like 5 or 6 journals over here, like of ideas and concepts and whatever. It's wonderful. What happens if you take your journal on a trip and you leave it in the hotel room in Omaha? What happens if I'll tell a very, very quick story. So I'm doing a guest teaching job at a local high school, and it's a physical science course. And a young lady is sitting and she's writing notes in this notebook. And I'm like, oh, that's really cool. She's a senior. She's going to college next year. I said, this is a physical science class. I said, oh, do you think you'll take physical science as a freshman in college? And she said, yeah, I probably have to or whatever. So that's super dope. I said, you think you're going to bring your notebook with you? He says, yeah, probably. I said, that's cool. What happens if you lose your notebook between now and the time you're a freshman in college, or something happens to it, you drop coffee on it or whatever? It's right now you can read your handwriting, but at that time it's illegible. You don't remember your shorthand or something like that. It's like, it's a good question. I said, does your teacher show you how to digitize your notes? You're taking a chapter note? Great. Let's take those things and put them in either Google Keep. You don't have to be something fancy, a Google Doc or whatever. That's just, no. Digitizing them allows those things to be saved, not on your computer, in a cloud somewhere. And not to say that the clouds don't fail, they do. But the likelihood of the cloud failing and using your notebook, which one seems more likely of an outcome, right? I lose notebooks all the time. You know, my wife took one of the notebooks that I had in the room, in our bedroom, and she took it with her. I was looking for these notes because I didn't digitize them yet. And I'm like, oh my goodness, with these notes. Have you seen this blue notebook? Oh yeah, yeah, I took it and did. I'm like, I do. I did all these notes in this book. I thought it was mine. So there's a reason why to take those things and create a digital record of the concepts and the ideas that you did, whether it's in shorthand, whether it's in a process. I use a Zettelkasten framework with Obsidian, where I write everything down and it goes and creates this wonderful graph of how things are connected. It's super important, but kids don't do it. Adults, I think, for the most part, don't do it. Webs, you could say something.
Yeah, so not only that, but it is a purposeful way of reviewing the notes that are there. So like there's a reason for it. So often we'll generate activities for students, for our learners who that don't really, like, we do it because you need to tick that box from a pedagogical perspective, but this is actually a purposeful activity. So while you're moving your notes from wherever you have them in your notebook to that digital place, not only are you making them more resilient because they're backed up somewhere, but also while you're doing the transfer, you're reviewing your notes. That was actually going to be the thing that I was gonna talk about. Was you were the one who kind of really made me realize that this is a really good process of taking notes that you have that are written down in a notebook somewhere and digitizing them if you want to make sure that you don't lose them. And the idea that it's a natural editing and revising point when you're taking those notes and moving them to a digital space.
Yeah, because lots of times I realized that I misspelled a word, that I actually didn't mean the thing that I actually wrote in the note. It's like, oh, okay, I got to let me go back and read that text. Oh, that's not actually what he's saying. He's saying this thing, right? It's an opportunity, again, to your point, to revise and edit, but also to reveal to yourself on second pass, oh, there's actually some deeper connections I could have made with these notes as I'm moving them to Ulysses or Obsidian or wherever you save your things at. And so we have a digital tool.
Also not a sponsor, by the way, but Obsidian, Ulysses,
Yes,
if you want to sponsor us, like, reach out.
definitely would be down with it. Definitely be down with it. It's a open source tool that is amazing. This is just a Google Doc template that we built. And this is just we call it a source code because, Webs, can you explain what a source code is?
Yeah. So we interact with tools all the time, right? You have apps on your phone, you have websites on the internet, but that's not what the actual underlying, like, description of those websites looks like. So the pretty version that you see is compiled from, and don't, my developer friends don't yell at me for misusing compile. I know it's not actually always compiled, but for the purposes of this, it's brought together and it displays this pretty version of what you see here. When, if you were to look at what's underneath, it's a bunch of like brackets and parentheses and little braces and numbers and all kinds of things, equal signs. And those things are what produces what you experience in the user interface. But that source code is where all of this is generated from.
And that is the kind of the magic of the mundane, kind of to explain in developer jargon, right? Yo, we want to take the important thing is the ugly stuff underneath in order to make the pretty stuff later on. All right. And part of the ugly stuff is now looking at your analog process and saying, okay, cool, let's actually use that as inspiration to go through and build this who I am concept, right? And so what we have is just like, yo, that circle map should have brought some things, makes things visual and visible to you. Now let's go and play around with some stuff because we really want to give whatever interactions we have with the LLM a flavor that is individualized to our particular circumstance. Who would play you in a biopic? Sounds like just a ridiculous question, but really that is surfacing very much who you perceive yourself to be in life. What you're going to see, hopefully in a couple of minutes, is I said Michael B. Jordan, not just because he's just super cool and suave, but he gives a kind of there's a charisma that he has on the camera that I hopefully perceive myself as having in the learning environment in which I work. All right, 5-song biographical playlist. What are songs that really get to the essence of who you are? What's a film you can watch over and over? What hobbies do you have outside the classroom? Where would you go if you could plan your own dream vacation? In another life, what career would you choose? Those type of questions and those answers are going to flavor and make your experience different from Webb's experience, different from this other person, this other teacher's down the road experience, despite the fact you might all teach third grade.
The other thing about source code is you change it in one place one time if it's well written, and it stands out to everywhere else, right? So like if they change the source code of Google Docs, it's not just that Mike gets that change, it's that every person using Google Docs gets that change. And so when you change your source code here, you see that span out into all the places that you've referenced it.
So this is a lot of like really kind of getting deep down into who you are as a teacher, not why you are as a teacher. So avoiding the kind of it's flowery stuff, really getting down to what is your actual philosophy in the classroom? What do you actually do? How does your classroom run? All that kind of wonderful stuff. And we've got 4 different layers here. We're just going to show you the source code layer because it's the easiest one for people to kind of surface. Or that source code layer is really getting down to operationalizing who you are as a teacher in order to do the LLM work that you would like. All right. That being the case, if you deal with the human, then you do the analog, then you do the digital, we get to a place where Webb's concept of one of her favorite quotes comes to bear. Webb's, why is this one of your favorite quotes?
Because you just see it play out so many times just in real life. I think another, aside from AI, another good place where you see this is with the cloud. So for a lot of folks, the cloud seems like something mysterious and magical. It's really just someone else's computer. It's someone else's very well backed up computer. That's all the cloud is. But it just seems, or even if you think about like, I remember when I first moved to Las Vegas, we hadn't yet invented the technology to be able to instantly transfer money from bank to bank. And that came in the next like year or so since I had been here. But when that happens, that still kind of feels like magic, right? Just here, I'm just going to send you $20 digitally over, now we have Venmo and Cash and what's the other one? I forget. It's not important.
Zelle.
Anyway, yeah, Zelle. Like there's a lot of different ways that you can do it. But there was a time when the only way you could do that was by physically handing someone money, right? So you just see this play out, I think, in the digital age so much. It seems there's so many things that seem like magic. Even when I'm writing code, like I've often said that when I write code, I feel like I'm a magician because I'm like writing all these spells that just like make things come to life. They become these things that people can interact with. And it's basically created from nothing. It's really wild. So that's why I love this quote.
Excellent. And so again, taking it back to the science concept that Vonnegut kind of introduced with this quote, if I have the same materials, the same environment, the same procedures, I should be able to duplicate what you did. If I can't duplicate it, it isn't science. And that's something that you learn from elementary school on, right? Hey, if I have the same materials, same knowledge, we have the same variables at play, we can produce the same outcome, right? And so we call this the magic of the moment. And so because instantaneously, with all these things put together, if we do the work behind, oh my gosh, it becomes a thing, right? And so the magic of the moment is really, what people think that really happens when you just go to AI and say, make me a lesson plan. And suddenly, makes me a lesson plan, right? Great. So let's actually test this. If you remember, the original deal, we just asked it a prompt. We're going to ask it that exact same prompt. All right. We're not going to add anything except for a different variable. So using the components of an effective lesson plan, create a third grade lesson, not third grade.
A third grade lesson.
Now, we're going to add what we call grounding to this. We're going to give it the context so it's not the probabilities it's going to use are grounded in some certainties. I am telling you what the actual concept should be based on rather than you going on the internet and using whatever vast training data you have to say, do the guesstimate situation, right? The 3 autocompletes in the trench coat. I don't want that. So I'm going to click there and I'm going to go to notebooks. And my source code is part of this notebook. But what we have is something called Classroom Operating System. And we're going to get to that in just a moment. But I'm going to show you this magic as it's thinking. Great. Click. And you're going to notice something off the bat. It starts to actually have to do some work. It didn't instantaneously develop a lesson plan. It was like 15 seconds the last time and boop, it had this thing for me. It is doing some thinking now. Analyzing classroom files.
This stuff always makes me so nervous.
Analyzing.
It has never once failed. And also I still get so nervous when we get to this point.
It's doing all this work now that it wasn't doing before. Oh my goodness. Analyzing all this stuff because we're making it, refining grade 3 details, analyzing. This is the load screen.
Articulating splines.
Yeah. So super interesting. This is taking a lot longer than what it did before, but it's mama's home cooking rather than the McDonald's McChicken at this particular point. So this is, super interesting. Verifying 3rd grade data. It's verifying things now. It's just not, defining lesson plan components. ELA lesson plan.
ELA. Oh, that's interesting.
Goodness. Now, we've got a lot more junk here. Based on the structural design and pedagogical systems outlined in Mike Lang's Classroom OS architecture document, an effective lesson plan follows a 55-minute framework built around 4 components: a high concept introduction, own it, learn it, and share it, alongside a dedicated closing sequence. Here is a 3rd grade English language art lesson plan built specifically to align to this operational framework. Whose operational framework? My individualized operational framework, utilizing your classroom's theme of imagination and creativity, your designed group roles, and your approved ELA tool suite. We also see that it's saying, yo, I got some references for you. I didn't pull this out of the ether. This is where I got this information from. You did the blue collar work, Mike, so I didn't have to. I'm basing all these decisions not on probabilities from the internet and my training data, but from information that you gave me. Wonderful. High concept introduction. Own it for 10 minutes. Learn it for 15 minutes. Share it for 20 minutes. And they have to do this a product-based focus. And again, it's giving me my appendices, my appendix and my references, dismissal and class close. Now, would I still have to go through this to make sure that it actually is, aligned to what I'm talking about? Absolutely. But this is a lot more aligned to my situation than my previous situation here. So if I go in search chats, we go to that 3rd grade lesson plan. This is not using any of that language. And Webs, does it give me any, there's no bibliography here whatsoever. It's not telling me where any of this information came from. So I certainly have this extra work to do. If I don't do the blue collar work first, I'm going to have to do the blue collar work later on in order to make sure that this stuff is accurate. Anything to add there?
Not only that, but you'll have to do it every single time.
Absolutely. And look at even naming conventions. 3rd grade fractions lesson plans, 3rd grade ELA fraction plan analysis.
Lesson plan analysis.
Lesson plan. That's really interesting. It's analyzed my stuff and rocked and rolled with it. So that's interesting. Where did we get this concept from? What we built is a boot camp for teachers that will walk you through how to build that entire thing out so it's one situation and it does all the magical stuff for you. We're doing this again at Von Tobel Middle School on the 20th of July from 9:30 to 12:30. This is going to be free. If you're a local teacher, it's an opportunity for you to get some CUs. Also, this is 2 weeks before the school year starts. You would have all your stuff set up and ready to rock and roll way before. If you follow some socials or all that stuff, this link is going to be on our socials. It'll be there for you to do all the things to do if you want to go and sign up for it. It looked like magic, but it wasn't. It was just giving our LLM some context in order to create the content that we want. You should not be going to Teacher Pay Teacher or downloading random worksheets from somebody's website. That is over in terms of you being able to produce content for your particular learning environment very quickly. Webbs, anything to add to that?
Yeah, so if you go to our website, theintelligenthoodlums.com, and you go to past, you can actually see where we did with this with some teachers under what we've run. There's a link to the story, and then you can also, if you want to really get the details of it, you can give us your email. We'll give you the white paper that we wrote up about exactly how this works, including what teachers produced once they had this up and running. Because I mean, obviously we only have an hour here, but once we do all the layers and you have that full notebook, it's really amazing the things that you can produce that are in your own voice, that fit your classroom, and you're not having to like go back and redo or adapt or adjust. Yeah, it's that first one, see the story. And if you click on it, it'll take you to more details about how the first time we did this went, what we ran, how we worked. We had that human analog digital piece we talked about, the 5 layers, some of the activities that we did. Obviously, it's not absolutely everything because we had 15 hours with this group of teachers, but some of the things that they said and some of the feedback that we got. And then at the very bottom, you can get the white paper.
So it was a lot of fun doing that. It's also like, let's demystify this concept. You don't have to be someone who gives all of your processes to AI. No one is advocating, or at least we aren't advocating doing that.
No.
How do you structure your use of AI, whether you're a teacher, you're an engineer, you're whatever you happen to be, so that you are always looking at yourself as a human, as an authority, as somebody who understands what's going on? Yeah, taking an analog process and writing those things down, sketching them out and whatnot so it makes sense to you, and then having that conversation in a grounded sense with your LLM. And I could take that conversation with my particular individualized circumstance and have a full-blown redesign with the large language model about, hey, this isn't what I asked. Here are the actual standards that I'm dealing with today. We're going on a field trip to the zoo. We want to integrate this stuff in here. I'm not going to be here on Wednesday. This tweak that so that you could do that in a lot easier way than having to do it independently. And the thing that I kind of am very appreciative about this particular process is, if you're someone who is a chronologically or usually someone whose chronotype differs from the prevailing chronotype in our society, being able to utilize a LLM that is going to be awake when you are is super powerful. Webbs is a what do you think, a third bird maybe? Are you an early bird or you're a third bird? Or what? Like,
I'm an early bird.
She's an early bird person, so she gets up early and is able to function that way. I am not someone whose brain is ready to fire at 6 a.m., 6:30, 7 o'clock. That's just not who I am. But 1 or 2 in the morning, be able to sit here and shoot information back and forth, that's when I'm in my element.
That is not a service I can provide.
And so
I'm fast asleep. Likewise, if I need an answer at 7 a.m., like, you aren't going to be it, and that's totally fine. It helps to have that rubber ducking where you can like talk out your problem and, figure out what you're trying to get at when it comes to, I'm trying to build this lesson, I want to integrate this thing, what am I missing? So it's not really any different than learning any other tool. we very few teachers use paper grade books anymore. There was probably a phase where you wrote it in your paper grade book and then transferred it to your digital grade book. Now most people have grade pass back. Like, there have been advances in technology that make jobs easier, and this is yet another one. As long as you know how to wield it, just like any other technology.
And you can do this with
Yeah.
the proper structure. It's not something that
Mm-hmm.
we just showed you in an hour, just one kind of step in building it. This is not it's not magic in terms of the only people that can do this are some kind of uh, engineer in Silicon Valley. Anybody with the proper structure can do this particular thing. Your students, I don't care if they're kindergartners or first graders, if you give them the structure, they're going to be able to create lots of dope content by co-creating and collaborating with the AI tools and with one another, but not in a way that the AI tool has overshadowed their ability to do the things that they need to do. So it has been a joy kind of presenting this concept to you for the last hour. We are going to be scheduling more of these things on the 13th of July. We're going to have a week-long hustle where we look at Google Classroom coming up. Google Classroom's done a lot of things with AI this and AI that, and you don't need to do any of those things to be successful with Google Classroom. If you're someone who is using the human, the analog and digital kind of concept, that strategy, you're going to be able to make Google Classroom do whatever you would like without having to rely on Google Classroom as the sole way for doing so. And that's what we're going to demonstrate to you over 5 evenings, July 13th to the 17th. Tomorrow we'll throw those things on socials so that you can just be aware to be able to look at the broadcasts. But it's going to be a situation where we have a lot of fun. We'll do some things. We'll tell some jokes. We'll kind of pull down the curtain for the magic. And again, we'll hopefully have some teachers who are not going to be teacher tied this school year. I think there's no reason to. Well, I don't see a reason for you to eschew the tools that happen to be presented in front of you and say, no, I'm not going to use those things because the old ways are the best ways. So that's what we got for tonight. No, we don't have a flashy outro because we didn't have a flashy outro for ISTE. No flashy outro.
Pew 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 pew.
Yeah. We'll do a flashy outro for the Google Classroom one. If you enjoyed this, share this with a friend. Share something that you learned with a friend. And we will be back on the airwaves July the 13th through the 17th, and then we'll be live doing these things at Von Temple Middle School on the 20th through the 24th of this month.
So if you're local, go to our website, sign up.
Absolutely. All right. Nothing else. God bless Lesotho, in South Africa, and also Bali. I've always wanted to go to Bali. It's on that is on the bucket list there. Bali, stay frosty till I get there. Catch you later.